Episode 234, Understanding ADHD Through a Gospel Lens with Kamden Hainsworth.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
In this episode, Heather is joined again by Coach Kamden Hainsworth to talk about a topic that impacts more people than we often realize, ADHD. As an ADHD coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Kamden shares 10 things she wishes church members understood about ADHD. From emotional dysregulation to time blindness to how ADHD affects spirituality and service, Kamden brings clarity, compassion, and so much validation. Whether you've been diagnosed, love someone who has, or just want to better understand how to build a Zion-like community, this episode is for you. Please enjoy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I have Coach Kamden Hainsworth with me. Hey, Kamden. How you doing?
So good. Happy to be here.
Good. We're just discussing her beautiful background. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. But she told me that she did her own built-ins here, like she beautiful cabinets, and I love it. I love seeing what everybody does in their homes. It's inspiring. You helped me one time. I don't remember where we were. We were some sort of coaching situation. And I think we were recording a podcast. And I'm like, I want a wallpaper, but I'm having commitment issues.
That's right. I remember that. That's funny.
Oh, yep. Anyway,
did you commit? Or are you still procrastinating?
I'm still procrastinating. I've gotten the wallpaper samples, so that's good.
Okay. There you go. One step forward. Sometimes things don't need to rush though. We're like, I want it now, but really maybe we just want time.
Yep. I know. That's exactly what's been. The truth is I've got a lot of different things going. We're just finishing up a cabin in one place. I'm like, okay, I got to keep focused on one thing. So anyway, I'm excited for you guys for this conversation today. And I'll let her introduce herself and who she works with, but she has been on with me before. Like I said, we were recording a podcast before with her. And if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen. Actually, you've done a couple with me, haven't you?
I think
this
two.
is probably our third one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So go back and check those out, but I'm going to have her introduce herself before we get started here so you can know a little bit more about her if you haven't listened to those episodes.
Yeah, so I'm Kamden Hainsworth. So excited to be here again on this podcast. I am an ADHD coach, and I have worked with a lot of different people over the years. I mainly work with moms that are multi-passionate, and I have really started to shift my clientele into members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Though anyone that is in front of me, I am happy to coach. And helping people understand their brain, understand what it means to live with ADHD, how to start to align their goals and ambitions with their body and their brain, and not see it as something that is so intimidating, but to really give them the keys to their vehicle and teach them how to drive the car, essentially. Nobody really teaches us that, especially after diagnosis. So helping them navigate it and then reach, the fulfilling life that they want without feeling like they're in intense overwhelm or burnout or anything else that is around that negative emotion as well. So it's a lot of fun. Been doing it for
brilliant, though. So brilliant. Okay, you said the phrase, is it multi-passionate? Did you say multi-passionate? I've not heard somebody use that before, and I love that. I feel like just that statement in and of itself is kind of mind-opening to some of those ADHD, probably. I mean, being multi-passionate, I guess I shouldn't say is just limited to ADHD. People with
oftentimes people with ADHD are multi-passionate, for sure.
Yes.
And then everyone else can also be as well.
Yeah.
But for that community, it pops up quite a bit.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think that's a great phrase.
Oh, good. I'm
So
glad it
thank
resonates.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? I mean, I know what we're going to talk about, but let's tell everybody else.
We're going to talk about 10 things that I wish that members of the church understood and knew about ADHD from my perspective and my clientele's perspective. This is going to be inspired by a podcast that my mentor and coach trainer recently gave, Kristen Carter. You can check out her podcast as well. I have ADHD podcast. But I think having the context about as a member of the church in specific is going to add another layer that's going to be very relatable and helpful to you, whether you have ADHD yourself, you have a loved one with ADHD, you don't believe ADHD exists, whatever it might be. But just 10 things that I would love for you to have them land in your lap, put it into your two hands, and just observe for a second,
Mhm.
consider.
Well, I think the important thing for all of us is really believing people. And I know that'll sound like a general statement, but people can tell us their experience, but until we believe their experience, and that doesn't mean that we have to like agree with it or think it's
Right.
right or accurate, but believe that that is their experience, we can never really be like empathetic or understanding or connect with people if we're not believing their story. And so I think conversations like this are so good to have because it helps us to to see people and to better believe what they are trying to tell us.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot that we can glean from people that are different from us,
Hmm.
that can enrich our lives and help us to not only understand each other better, but understand ourselves better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let's get going on this
Are we going
list
to
because
jump into it?
I'm excited. Yeah, tell me about it. Let's get going.
Okay, number one is that ADHD is the most treatable neurodevelopmental disorder out there. A lot of the time so I got my diagnosis at 36 years old. A lot of the time we might feel labeled or misunderstood, or like we've been given some kind of dramatic negative news. If we get a diagnosis, or if a loved one does, or a child of ours does. But the good news is that it is highly treatable. And Dr. Barkley, who has been researching for a long time in ADHD, has found, and is to be quoted, that 75 to 92% of people with ADHD can be treated that way. So it's very, very high. And that's meaning that medication and coaching and support actually can be very, very beneficial with this neurodevelopmental disorder.
That's a high
So
number.
it's very high. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very high. So when we think of ADHD in general, I think it's also important to remember that everyone's ADHD looks different. And because of that, the different support systems are going to be tailored to that person's needs, that person's ambitions, view of themselves, view of what they want to create in their life. And so that is key. That is key to getting your needs met, to treating it. While there's a lot of commonalities among the community, being really specific with what your needs are, your family members' needs are, is going to be even more helpful. And treating doesn't necessarily mean becoming neurotypical either.
Yeah.
Treating means being able to manage this body and brain that we have in order to function in life, to be successful in life. But our success and our function is allowed to look different than a neurotypical's.
Because I mean, in and of itself, thinking that you should be able to treat and become neurotypical would be like saying, well, there's something wrong with
Wrong.
me.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that's not the case. That's not this. But if you try to tell yourself, then that is kind of inadvertently the story that you're telling yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I will certainly say that, I mean, in this list, we're going to see it. ADHD is not a struggle. It is a struggle. And with that, we also have just dynamic personalities and gifts and talents that we have developed, maybe in response to our ADHD and our multi-passionate nature and our common inability to finish things, that we jump from one thing to the next. We have developed great, skills, and we don't need to label this as not a challenge, and we don't need to label this as yes, it is like a total disabling, and like I said, it's not a death sentence. I would consider it a disability, but it's not a disability that isn't going to be able to be helped and supported. All right, we ready? Number 2?
Yes, let's hear it.
Okay, number 2, a strong support system can make a massive difference. So I love the way that our church is organized for community and support systems. I love the idea of ministering sisters and ministering brothers. I love that when we are called to a calling that supposedly demands a lot of us, that we also get counselors and secretaries and other people that can support us in that. I love that we are instructed to counsel together and to get multiple perspectives and ideas. And I think that the way that the church as a system is set up, it can be very helpful for someone with ADHD. It also can be a really toxic way, if we approach it, to just compare ourselves to everyone because it's so easy to access. If someone has a calling, they're going to get released in a couple years, and then someone else is going to be called. And assuming that we stay in a ward or in the church system for a while, we have a lot of examples of different people and different callings. So it can become really easy for us to compare ourselves to another person. And that's not ADHD specific. But I'd like to highlight why having a support system with ADHD is so helpful. So in past episodes, we've talked about why ADHD is a disability, why it is considered a neurodevelopmental disorder. And a lot of that stems from how the prefrontal cortex of the brain operates in comparison to other brains. It operates differently. And some people would even say that it's an underdevelopment of the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex allows us to do all of the higher level thinking and just everything that kind of makes us human and not a lizard. That's what our prefrontal cortex helps with. So for someone with ADHD that struggles with prioritization, organization, thinking long term instead of just what's right in front of them, we struggle with knowing how long to estimate for things to happen or to take place. We struggle with, and I'm going to be touching on some of these, but like emotional dysregulation, sense of rejection. We have high rejection sensitivity. We have a difficult time. What we do see really well is big picture thinking, but breaking those into actual tasks. And Heather, you and I were talking about utilizing AI, and that is something that has actually been really helpful for me, is I can see a big vision, but knowing how to break the tasks down. So when we work together in a presidency or with a team teacher or a partner in a church calling, in a church system, and we are willing to honor what we are talented at and also honor where we lack and could be supported in, then that might sound like, I have a great idea for young women's camp, or have a great idea for a women's conference coming up, or a ward council. But counselors, I'm having a difficult time knowing what different steps we need to take. This is the general feeling I want to do. This is how I want the women to learn and to take away from. These are the kind of activities I was thinking about doing, but I need help putting that all together and having your insight into a frame that actually is achievable and can be successful. And I'm here, and this is, as the ADHD part, we have to take responsibility and to be humble and to be approachable and teachable. But if we have that full if we have the ownership over that, that's just not our forte, and that doesn't mean anything's wrong with us, then asking for help, asking for support, having open communication with the people we serve with, is going to really, I feel like, build Zion, where everyone feels needed and they are needed, and they can bring, their talents and their gifts to the table, and they actually need to be used. They're not just there as a second thought.
Right, right. Isn't it fascinating? I think that we forget, like, there's people like, say, in your presidency who would probably never be able to come up with those ideas. Like you said, I have a great
Yeah.
idea for this camp. Like, those ideas probably wouldn't come to them, but they are probably very good at executing the day-to-day things.
Yeah. Tell
And
me what to do and I'll do it. Yeah,
yes.
type of thing.
And
Yeah.
so just to your point, like, we need each other because we all have different strengths, and our ability to do things is different, and the way that our ideas come are different, and
Yeah.
but we're all creators in a different way, and I think we
Oh,
just have to figure
thank
out,
goodness.
yes,
Yeah,
we have to figure out what way we create, how
that's
we
right.
where our strengths are.
That's right. And as someone, I feel like society as a whole, they like to focus on, the big banners in the sky, and the just
Hmm.
the bigger ideas that often people that have creative minds come up with. And notice how you're talking to yourself, I would say. If you're saying that you being able to make a business plan or a schedule or even an agenda is any less than, dreams in the sky, then I would say rethink that, because most days as a mom of four and running a business, I would so happily trade with you. I would so happily trade with you for those moments. And the point being is we are so much better together. And I think Heavenly Father did this intentionally. He made my brain the way that my brain is so that I can create what I can create. And He made your brain the way your brain is and anything in between so that together we are stronger. I'm starting to believe this and honor it and understand it through the context of the gospel and the idea of Zion more and more. I'm just amazed at the intention of our heavenly parents.
Hmm.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, I
It
think.
is.
Okay,
All
on
right,
to number
number
three.
number 3. Okay, calling ADHD a superpower can be dismissive. It doesn't mean that it is dismissive, just that because there are, once again, that wide range of personalities and family types and upbringings, ADHD does not necessarily mean that someone has learned to leverage their brain yet. Nor does it mean that they haven't struggled and struggled for years because of this inability to focus and so many other things that come with
Mhm.
ADHD. So when we say, hey, ADHD is a superpower, and that's where it stops, it almost dismisses a lot of the pain that we have and the struggle that we have day in and day out that we are very aware of, almost overly aware of. People are good. People are super. People have talents and abilities that blow me away every single day. And the way that an ADHD brain works without like those bumpers, the bumpers in like
Mhm.
bowling,
Yep.
without those bumpers is different and can be used for beautiful things. But also imagine having that brain and having to sit down in a political, like, what I was going to say, like a class, like a government class
Mhm.
as a 10th grader, and not being interested in government and not being interested in anything the teacher was saying. All of a sudden, what's going to make that individual incredible in some areas becomes very, very difficult in others. And so to dismiss the struggle by saying it's only a superpower, in my opinion, and in the experience of many of my clients, they feel like they're broken if they don't feel like it's a superpower. Well, their ADHD is a superpower, then there must be something wrong with me because I don't feel that my ADHD is a superpower. I think just reframing it and complimenting the human that they are and complimenting maybe more specifics of like what you think is super about them, what you think is incredible about them, instead of just saying generally, your brain is superpower. And I understand the
Right.
intention behind it.
Right.
I would also just add that we come from all different backgrounds and people pay good money for therapy. They pay good money for medication, for coaching, for many things. Like your access to help with ADHD is a privilege that a lot of the world does not have. My privilege of even getting diagnosed with ADHD at 36 and then being able to then send my kids to therapy and get my kids the help. Like think of the whole world. That is not something that comes easily to most people. And so I would say financially, and I would say that most people, the reason why they're diagnosed with ADHD is because they've been struggling. So just notice that. And people that have ADHD might disagree with me on this one, but I'm just saying based upon my clientele, they need to be validated and seen way before they're ever told that they're something fabulous and incredible. Like whatever in whatever area that might be. Sometimes they might be ready to hear that's a superpower, but
Right.
maybe
Would
hear
it
them
be,
first.
yeah, would it be fair to like to ask the question even like what is your superpower? Like not just assuming that ADHD is a superpower, but every human has a superpower. What do you think yours is? I mean, if rather
Yeah.
is that an
I think if
unfair
it's a great question. I think if the context is their diagnosis of ADHD or autism or neurodivergence
Mhm.
in general, assuming that they know that about themselves yet, or that they have even gotten to that place yet, or that it must mean that they, are different or, intense in one kind of area. I don't
Yeah.
know if most people would be ready for that. But if
Yeah.
it was outside of the conversation of diagnoses and that, I think asking like, I think my verbiage might be like, tell me more about what you're passionate about.
Mhm.
Tell me
Yeah.
more about what makes you tick. Tell me more about, you know, where you spend your time the most.
And I guess that's where I was going because I think that's a conversation that I like to just ask with anybody, right? But
Good.
maybe I didn't want to yeah, like knowing my audience, right? Like I guess
Yeah.
knowing when's an appropriate time to ask that question and knowing who I'm talking to before just asking that like
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, I
thanks.
think if they knew you were just talking generally, then it would just be
Hmm.
Heather talking to them, right? But if it
Right.
came out that, oh, I have ADHD, oh, I'm neurodivergent, and now I'm being asked what's your superpower,
Yes.
it's like,
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this my superpower? Like, once again, well, I don't have to get into it, but that comparison thing is coming up again, right?
Mhm.
And we live with a lot of doubt, self-doubt. Most of the work I do with my clients is helping them learn how to develop self-trust because our brain constantly lets us down, constantly. And so learning how to develop trust in ourself and in our brain is a whole thing. So an open-ended question like that of like, oh shoot, not just what I'm interested in, but like what I have to be really good at. Well, what about if I say something and everyone else is better than me, you know? I just gave you a little bit of insight into what it feels
Yeah.
like to have ADHD. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. I love to be educated, and so thank you for that insight. I think that was
That's a great question.
really
It
helpful.
comes up a ton. And like I said, there will be other coaches that might disagree with what I'm saying, but based on what I'm seeing, I just
Right.
feel like it's cleaner energy from this side
Yeah.
to highlight that. All
Thank
right,
you.
number 4.
Hmm.
Okay. Medication alone isn't enough. We often say skills don't teach, I mean, excuse me, pills don't teach skills in the ADHD community. Okay. So if we think about the prefrontal cortex and what like a stimulant medication could be, and there are so many different medications out there. I've been working with so I was diagnosed about 5 years ago, and I still have yet to find a medication that works well. I think I'm on number 9 right
Oh
now.
boy.
And thankfully, it's only been 1 or 2 days, and I'm like, dude, this is not going to work. It's trial and error, right? But even when medication does work, It doesn't mean all of a sudden I know how to organize tasks on a piece of paper. All it means is that I now have the ability to write words and sit down and be still. All of a sudden, that's not threatening to me. So now I'm like, okay, I feel like I should plan. Weird. Okay, I'm going to sit down. I don't know how to plan, or I don't effectively know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So now that our brain has increased, what I like to say is the pause, that gives us a little bit more think time, not so impulsive, allows us to not have 16 things going on at once, but maybe we only have eight, in our head. Now that we can do that, now what? Like, how do I do the next step? And so this isn't here to like make it sound like ADHDers are completely incompetent. Obviously, many of us have graduated from college and are extremely good in our callings and our professions and great contributors to society. I'm not saying that. We grit through and we figure it out, but it is not easy. It is not smooth. It feels very crunchy. It takes all of the juice out of us. Our capacity battery just goes down very quickly. And so, even though medication is allowing us to see the world a little bit more clearly and see what we need to get done, coaching, DBT, EMDR for trauma, meditation, mindfulness, rest, all of these things, in addition to medication, are going to be a key. Going to the pediatrician or going to your family doctor, getting medication is going to be a big disappointment if you think that that's the only thing that most people need. Most people will need additional support. So think of think of like your spiritual practices, for example, scripture study, or being in church on Sunday, or going to the temple, even like ministering. You're like, great, now I can go and sit and hear. But now that I can do that, what should I think about? What should I pray about? Or now that I actually set up the appointment to go see someone, or, to drop by, what am I even supposed to do? Like, we have these opportunities now a lot of the time when we take medication, but learning the skill and being patient with ourselves to actually know how to follow through and develop ourselves there feel a little bit strange sometimes.
That is probably a really important piece, to have grace and patience for yourself. It
Yeah.
has to be. I mean, it's hard for everybody.
Right. Of course.
But you put yourself in this situation, these circumstances, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I know so. What this will often look like is the first month or so, someone feels like, wow, I'm able to get a lot of things done that I've been doing my whole life. So that means laundry.
Yeah.
Like, they know how to clean a toilet. They know how to, and then when they start to think of their bigger goals, all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute. I don't actually know how to reach those.
Yeah.
I need somebody to help me set that up. AI, once again, coaching, asking a friend or a neighbor. I remember I had a friend that needed to write a resume. She hadn't, applied for a job for forever. And so she came over, we body doubled, and I helped her through writing a resume. And she's undiagnosed ADHD. And I just thought, it's not that she couldn't do this, but man, it was so good for her to utilize that body double, to utilize someone who knew her well. It's like, bravo for her for asking for help. It was awesome.
That's awesome. It's like it just gives you it gives you the opportunity or the space to do something that you, without the medication, are just don't have even the space to even think about.
You don't even have capacity half the time.
Okay. Yeah. No, thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, it's helpful.
This episode is brought to you by The Grove, our new faith-based coaching community where women of the church gather each week for powerful workshops, practical tools, and gospel-aligned support. Each workshop is led by a highly trained life coach, just like the one you're hearing today. If you're loving these insights, you'll love what's happening inside The Grove. And yes, a men's group is coming soon, so stay tuned. You can find the link in the show notes to learn more, and we'd love to have you join us.
Okay, number 5 is our emotional dysregulation is really intense. This was one of the greatest takeaways when I was diagnosed with ADHD. I had 0% idea that ADHD impacted emotions. And that was the thing that was the hardest for me. I was a happy person. I was well adjusted. I kept the peace really well. I always had roommates that liked me. That's just kind of where I was at. And then I became a mom. And my hormones were number one all over the place. I went through few years of infertility. So that was one thing. But then, man, this raging, seemingly uncontrollable frustration and low tolerance for a lot in motherhood was jarring. It was really jarring for me. And I just thought, well, I'm just not good enough. I'm just not Christ-like enough. I just need to pray more, or evidently this is something to hide, to be ashamed of. I would never want anyone to know how I just spoke to my kids, or, it was very shameful and very confusing. So when I got a diagnosis with ADHD and I noticed that some of the top things about ADHD is that they impact emotional regulation, I went on a deep dive about, wait, what do they mean? What do they mean? And I had never felt so seen in my whole life. And I guess I bring that up, that this is definitely not an excuse for poor behavior. Once I recognized that devil in me was something separate than who I was, then I knew how to take care of it, because I saw it as an entity that I was supposed to manage, and not an entity that was managing me, and that I was unable to be proactively working against. That shift was everything, because now I could name it, I could see it. I would no longer expect my brain to naturally regulate for me. So if triggers came up, I talk about raising red flags, and I'd say, oh my gosh, this is a red flag. My red flag is up. My brain is not going to take care of this for me. So what do I have to do? And so then I hop into a system, or I hop into a tool, and then all of a sudden, who's in charge? It's no longer the dysregulated brain and nervous system. Now it's me taking ownership of that and helping myself get what I need. Obviously, everyone on this planet, we have nervous systems, and we have traumas, capital T and lowercase t. And so we will all experience this to some degree. But once again, that understanding that someone with ADHD comes to the situation already having underdevelopment in that area is so helpful. So in our presidency meetings or in our communication with each other, it's not that we need to be on eggshells with each other, but for someone with ADHD, just saying, hey, this is hard for me. And so I'm going to learn to develop either a greater understanding of my own nervous system, or I'm just going to communicate with you guys that sometimes something might hurt my feelings that I know you didn't mean by, but I might start crying. And I have open communication with you. And anyway, just like getting that out. Or I might get really passionate about something really quick, and it might seem like, whoa, she's getting angry, but I'm just getting really passionate. And then I'll come back, oh, okay, let me find my footing. And just making that an open conversation is going to be helpful. Also, I often say, I will probably offend you at some point, and it will probably not be on purpose. And something you need to know about me is I love having crucial conversations. I love getting deeper with people, even when it's uncomfortable. So when I offend you, and when that happens, the first thing you need to say is, Kamden told me this would happen. And the second thing is, I just need to shoot her a text and say, hey, could you clarify what you meant by this? I'm feeling a little unsure. And I give them the words to use so I know what that means. These kind of opportunities to converse, knowing that we have this challenge is, kind of nipping it in the bud before it ever gets too bad.
You're giving them permission to do something that they probably should do in the first place, right? But most people, if they're feeling unsure about a conversation, but most of us don't really feel comfortable just doing that. So you're getting ahead of it and being like, hey, I'm giving you permission to send me this text or ask me for clarification, which is so great.
And if the roles are reversed, so you're working with someone that probably has ADHD and they don't know it and they haven't had the opportunity yet to get on top of that, but they're kind of like a loose cannon sometimes. They're a big dreamer, like, put it together, people. Okay? Yeah. Think about it in your brain. How might you, approach them knowing that they suffer from rejection sensitivity? Okay? That might be, or that they might get really offended really easily. And that's hard to deal with anyway. And I would just, probably a 10 on your coaching here. Curiosity. Where can curiosity lead us? To beautiful places. Neutrality and curiosity. Hey, I remembered that you said this. Do you mind if I ask you a little bit more about, your thoughts about that? Or, hey, I was going to get started on what we talked about, and I just wanted to check in that you're feeling good about this and I can move forward. Instead of, you're the worst, that's a horrible idea, or whatever it might be. Not that anyone would say that, but just having a little bit more curiosity as to why they may have said that, why they may have done that, and letting that be a valid reason instead of jumping to conclusions that they're just rude and they're a jerk and they're just emotional. It goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Kamden, we're at number 6, and we're going to probably have to cruise through some of these so we can make sure that we can get through. So
we're good.
Here we go.
Okay. Number 5.5, ADHD or suffer from time blindness.
Oh.
We do not feel the passing of time. So although I keep looking at the clock, your reminder was helpful.
I love that you said number 5.5. This is making me laugh. Okay, good. Now on to really 6.
Number 6. Okay, ADHD is as heritable as height and often linked to trauma. Okay, so that means that a lot of people that have ADHD have grown up in households of people that had undiagnosed ADHD or diagnosed, but probably grandparents, great-grandparents that also had ADHD that were never diagnosed. And I know that this is touchy because this is not meant to be judgmental. It's just meant to kind of put it out there that we can be loose cannons, that we can be very impulsive. We can be chaotic. We can do the opposite of having structure. And that's not our forte in general. And so if that's the case, then many of us probably grew up in circumstances that also reflect trauma and reflect a child needing structure and needing co-regulation and needing a lot of things that someone with undiagnosed ADHD is unaware of, didn't bring to the table. So many ADHDers do also have trauma, and that is not necessarily their fault.
My brain is kind of like, I have some questions here. So if it's heritable, so it's something that we inherit, but it's also linked to trauma. Are you is the trauma
chicken or the egg?
Yeah. Is the trauma coming because of the way they were parented by a parent who had ADHD, or is it it's probably all of the above, right? I don't know.
That's where I've kind of settled in. It's a good question. It's a good observation to make. Most of my clients have trauma. A lot of them don't know they have trauma.
Right.
But a lot of them have experienced that. And yeah, it is kind of a chicken or the egg type of thing. But when we go back to the first thing of ADHD is very treatable, oftentimes when people start to get treated with ADHD and there are still lingering effects that they can't quite treat with medication or with coaching or things like that, that's usually when I suggest like something like EMDR that can really help where that is separate, feels a little bit more separate than the ADHD itself.
Gotcha. For
If
people
that
who don't know, can you clarify what EMDR is?
Sure. I'm not going to be able to remember the four. Do you remember the words?
I never
Eye
remember it
movement
either. Yep.
something. Essentially it is a reprogramming of the brain, and there's also something called ART therapy, which is a little bit more gentle. But essentially, if we have a traumatic event, our brain stores that traumatic event in the wrong spot. And so let's say, we saw a cougar while we were camping, and that was terrifying. And our brain now, every time that it's in the mountains, your heart starts to beat fast and you start to sweat and you just feel anxious the whole time. EMDR can start to reprogram the fact that a cougar is not there every single time. So PTSD, obviously, I kind of just explained PTSD,
Right.
but it's a reprogramming so that things that are true can be accessed more easily in similar circumstances to our traumatic events.
Okay. So I Googled it while we're sitting here
Okay,
just because
good.
it's bugging me because I can't remember the name
Yeah,
of it either, but it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So that's EMDR.
perfect. I love the
Anyway,
reprocessing. Yeah,
yes. Okay.
perfect. Yeah, thank you. That's the easier way of saying it. We should have just gone to the definition. Word recall is also very hard with ADHDers. So working memory and word recall. Okay, here we go. So heritability. Oh, I was just going to say also that sometimes when I'm reading in the scriptures about generational curses or, things like that, that's like the verbiage that they use in the scriptures. But I
Mhm.
also wonder if that's just like heritability of trauma
Yeah.
and heritability of brain types and untreated heritable mental illness. And anyway, it sounds like you're nodding that you've thought
I
about this
am
and heard
because
about this
I
too.
also think like, the scriptures that our hearts of our children shall turn to their fathers. Like I feel like as we try to heal ourselves from trauma and the things in our lives, we are also healing theirs. So it's
Yeah.
not something that just takes place in the temple when we go
Yeah.
and we do the work there. I mean, obviously part of the healing can take place in the temple, but it's not like the physical, we're doing the endowments and we're doing the temple work.
Right.
But we're also, as we heal ourselves, we're doing the emotional work to heal generations that have gone behind us.
I
And
believe so too.
yeah, I really do. Anyway,
I have felt ancestors near me. I more recently than any during this time of knowing about my diagnosis. Plus, I have generalized anxiety and panic attacks, and I know that many members of my family throughout all time have also really struggled with these issues. And I feel their strength from a different sphere, from a different perspective outside of their mortal bodies. And
mhm.
I feel their perspective a lot of a hand on the shoulder saying, "Yeah, this is hard. We feel you and it's worth it.
Yeah.
Keep at it." So I think
Thank you.
it's
Probably like a
beautiful.
thank you that's in there, right? Like,
Yeah.
thank you for doing this.
Yes. Yeah, it's cool. I'm grateful you brought that up. Okay, number 7. We're not trying to be annoying. We do care. Um, and we are trying. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Savior sees us as we are. He knows the intents of our heart. And I loved that talk by Sister Ruina about diving. And I dove in high school, so it was particularly awesome
Mhm.
from this past general conference. If you're listening later, from the spring 2025 conference, she talked about how when you are doing a dive, they judge you based upon the difficulty of the dive. So if you're doing like, a double and a half with a twist, that has a level of difficulty different than just like a pike dive. That's very basic and simple. And so in order to get a really high score on the pike, it requires less of you, but it's weighted differently. In order to get a really high score on the double and a half with a twist, it takes a lot more effort. It's a lot more challenging. And so the weight is also going to be different. And that's how Jesus Christ sees us. And I'm so grateful for his grace, because with that underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, getting places on time and prioritizing and remembering to text back and forgetting to do an agenda and forgetting to even open our scriptures or call someone back, that is not as accessible to our brain as neurotypicals. And so, with all the love and the intention in our heart, you can expect us to fail you in those areas from time to time. But it's not because we're lazy, it's literally because we have a brain that doesn't work like yours. And as maybe difficult as it would be for you to plan an FSY, and how exciting and wonderful that would be for a lot of ADHDers, we feel the same way about answering texts and getting back to people. So once again, it's just that give and take communication. If you have ADHD, will you please text me at 6:30 tonight if I haven't texted you back? That's something I will say often. If you haven't heard from me by Thursday, please give me a call. And on the flip side is fantastic. If I haven't heard from you by Friday, I'm just going to send you a quick text. Like, same thing. We're looking out for each other here. Any insights or thoughts with that?
No, I'm just sitting here thinking, how do I know if I like my
I think
brain
you
is
said this
like,
last time.
I know, like, is this me or is this like a perimenopausal me? Like, is there a
Also,
difference?
that's a
Like,
whole nother podcast. We could do that
yes.
one. Yeah.
Can you go, like, can you become, like, can that be part of you as like, do you
Yes.
develop ADHD in perimenopause? Does that happen?
A lot of the time, what perimenopause does is puts a magnifying glass on what's already been there. And
Okay.
so it's hard for everyone. Perimenopause is hard for everyone. It's real. That's why so many women get diagnosed in their mid 30s to 50s, is because of all the hormonal changes. And most people have had it for a lot of their life and they've just hacked it. And then we put that magnifying glass on top of it with those hormonal changes and it just goes wild. So
Okay.
it's not an either or. I would say it's hard for everyone and people with ADHD. It really, you guys, if you don't have it, you're probably getting a sense for how we've lived most of our life.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to disrail the conversation.
No, you didn't at all. It's a really
Derail.
important highlight. Menstrual cycles as well. I think we talked about this before, the week before. Your bleed and menstrual cycle is nutso because of the hormonal changes and the impact it has on dopamine. So,
Okay. All right.
side note. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
you're not trying to be annoying. That's
No,
where we
we're
just
not.
left. We're not trying to be annoying.
No,
Okay.
we are of all people the most aware of where we struggle.
Yeah.
And we're very hard on ourselves as it is. So I think the caveat with this is open communication, open communication, open communication.
So important.
For everyone. Okay. Number 8, we need flexible and creative systems. Okay. So sometimes that's accommodations. Sometimes that's like you're in school or you're at work and you ask for a office in a certain place, or you need a little bit longer to complete an exam, or sometimes that's in the form of accommodations. Also, like, they're just not going to make church 30 minutes just because you have ADHD. You know, Jesus will know that. It's fine. But I'm saying, like, as a whole, like, we're not going to be like, all right, for all the ADHDers, we're going to make church 30 minutes, right? So we know that that's not going to happen, but how can we create flexibility? I'm in primary right now. I'm the chorister, and oh my gosh, it is so great. So the junior primary, right? If they're getting squirrely, as a good teacher, what do? I get them out of their chair. I hold their cute little hands and we sing the song as we walk and march in circles, right? Like, that's just good practice. But for people with ADHD, as we narrow into society, okay, it's hard in school as well. But as we narrow into society and now we're in corporate or we're at a desk or we're in church callings where people, you know, want things just so, let's loosen up a little bit. Let's see where we can add in some flexibility, where we can take roles that we're actually good at. Heavenly Father does this for us. And I love the New Strength of the Youth pamphlet. I think the flexibility is there. And what everyone's saying in conference as well. Like, get on your knees or go for a run and talk to God and figure out what you can bring, to the table here with all that flexibility. Okay, number 9. So sleep dramatically impacts ADHD symptoms. And the idea of early to bed, early to rise, to me shows the intentionality that sleep is valuable and that we honor our wake time as much as we honor our recharge time. So I'm cool with that principle. Sometimes, however, there's a delayed circadian rhythm with people with ADHD. So if you have kids like I was that go to early morning seminary and they have a hard time, I had to get up at 5:30 in San Diego, have a hard time getting up, it's not just because they're being difficult. If their circadian rhythm biologically and their clock during those teenage years is really struggling, then maybe we can find some more flexibility for how they can complete seminary. Maybe we can find some more flexibility of how many days there to go, or you just got to ask the question for your family. Every family is different. I also saw this on my mission as well. Like that wake up time was really difficult for people that I knew on the mission. I developed an intense discipline, and I'm grateful for the church for helping me out with that. But I was always exhausted, always, my whole life, my whole teenage life, up until like 2 weeks ago when I found the right supplements. And maybe it's just because they're in my system right now. But this is something I've been talking with all my doctors about, is exhaustion. We are already tired enough with ADHD, mentally, emotionally, because of that dysregulation. And then adding physically on that, you are going to see more meltdowns. You're going to see less achievement. You're going to see more problems with communication and in family systems. I love the Lord. I love what the gospel does for us. And we live in physical bodies that need rest. So whether that's seminary, whatever the heck it is, apply it to your family. And hopefully you have a little bit more grace and understanding for them. Okay, last one. Number 10, the ADHD brain can change. This is a beautiful idea of neuroplasticity, that the brain changes from the time we are born to the time that we die. There is plasticity. We can learn, we can grow, we can develop. Once again, this is not a sentence to an unfulfilled life of always living below our expectations and not ever having fulfillment in our relationships, and because we can't ever get things done. We are able to learn and to grow. And that's going to take patience. It's going to be at a different pace than most neurotypicals, but hopefully we don't give up on each other. Hopefully we see that we're all doing our very best. We're trying hard. We're working together. And once again, communicating with each other is going to be key with this, because in communication, healthy communication, we're able to see how we can build a little bit more of Zion with unity together. So those are the 10.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. I learn so much always, and it just helps me. I don't know. Like I said, I'm able to see people better, and people that I know in my life, in my family, and my friends that, have this diagnosis. It's so great. So
Good.
thank you. Thank you for sharing this with
Oh,
us
you're so
and
welcome.
spending the time.
Thanks for having me. And we finished with 1 minute to spare.
Oh,
So,
we did. And look at you. Yeah. Okay. Before we finish, though, I need you to share with people how they can connect with you.
Oh, of course. Yeah. So I'm the host of the Busy Brained Saint podcast. And so you can find me on Instagram at the Busy Brained Saint. And then I have a whole nother only ADHD specific, not LDS ADHD account called Kamden_ADHD. Or you can just go to my website to get all those things, KamdenADHDcoaching.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Kamden. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Send this to all your people, because I know that everyone listening is like, oh, yep, I know, yep. So
Good.
Thank you. All right.
Of course. Thanks,
Have
Heather.
a great one, everyone. We'll see you next time. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.